we'll be putting together an art book of a lot of the assorted images I've done for prints and for other commercial clients that have never been seen in a collected form before. I want to make it easier for my collectors to get those images more than just on your computer, but in print, where you can kind of more casually come upon it. Although using your phone to look up images is casual, but to me it's not. I like everything to be on paper, and I like to have something all kind of collected and combined where you can get to it in a library. And so our intent is to get a full book together of a lot of those images which I've produced in the last 10 to 15 years that have really not been assembled before.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Look who's here. Got a good doubleheader for us today. Let's play two. It's Matt Fraction and Terry Dodson. Great to see you guys. Congratulations on Adventureman. The first volume of the book is out. Came out about a week ago. And spectacular. Well done, boys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good to be here. Thanks, John.
As always. Absolutely, man. Well, I'm excited to talk pulp because I'm a massive fan of that and stuff. And I think Matt and I have talked about it a lot over the years.
Sure.
But Terry, I don't, were you a massive pulp guy as well? And as far as walking into this thing,
I think I'm a massive fan of the era and a massive fan of the artists of the era, as opposed to being an expert on pulp or anything like that. My pulp is Star Wars and Indiana Jones, which is like, it's all from. If it wasn't for the cliffhangers and the pulp stuff, those things wouldn't exist. So that's my influences, I think, more so than straightforward, Doc Savage, etc. I'm aware of it all. I've read bits, pieces, but I'm most familiar with like the cover art. That's Obama stuff and all the great lurid full color covers they used to do. Pretty amazing. So that's my bigger influence than the writing itself.
Well, I'll tell you, beyond the interior art itself, I really love the I don't know what you would call it, but essentially the design stuff that you did that really does look like theater kind of lobby art, or architecture, I suppose.
Yeah.
That leads into the story.
Yeah. The era of pulp is the 30s and the 40s, and that's Art Deco, leading into the 50s, kind of big fin stuff. So it's kind of there's so many great design elements and stuff that we can pull from, and it's such a big influence. And plus, New York itself is such a great setting for anything. And then you start doing 40s New York, and all of a sudden, it's big lights, bright city stuff. So no, it's excellent material to work with. It's a really good grounding for kind of like anything that's going to look pretty good. You put some Art Deco stuff in the background, and you're looking pretty sharp to start off with.
I could share my screen and show some pages here. Here's the cover, which looks fantastic. Look at that. So always beautiful people, man.
It's sort incredible. Of the fun of the approach is like it's historically accurate-ish. Like we take the stuff we like and respond to, and at no point. I actually in the last script I sent at some point I figured out like, oh, this kind of thing wouldn't be here for another 12 years if I don't remember what the was, maybe to a car or something, but there was something that was just like, oh, this is pretty anachronistic, but I don't care. It's if you're using this as a textbook, you're in trouble in ways that we can't help, and our accuracy as to period won't help either. But if it looks awesome, it kind of goes in.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty we kind of nailed down rough dates, but we got about as you said, I think 10, 12 years worth of visuals we can switch around that no one's going to know the difference. And since it's high fantasy pulp, it wasn't accurate in the first place. We just need to have things that kind of feel like they're of the era, because this is not historically accurate, of course.
Right. Yeah. Well, sure.
Yeah. Present day, obviously we know it's today that we're doing, but we got a lot of room to float around with, because now we're dealing with stuff that if it was actually today, it's 80 years ago. There's not too many people that remember accurately what we're doing anyways.
Absolutely. And Matt, it's a very meta story in a lot of interesting ways. As Claire kind of delves into the Adventureman story, and it literally takes over her life and her perception of things.
Yeah, I don't want it to. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. But I think of kind of somebody who's like done meta and very deliberate meta. Like I want this to be much more about the story and kind of about the vibe and the tone, just the world of pulps, or at least pulps as we remember them and imagine them, and less about. So it's not really a story about a story, even though it is. It's not that kind of. We're really talking about comics. It's not. It's this. What if this imaginative world was real and not? What if the coolest fiction was actually nonfiction?
Yeah, Ramsey makes a good observation of a lot of your recent work, Matt. Points out that Adventureman, November, and Jimmy Olsen could be a revisionist trilogy of three American genres: 30s pulp, 40s noir, 50s superhero. What fascinated you about those genres, and what did you learn writing them?
That's weird. With Adventureman, really it was working with Terry. Like what is, as a writer, anytime I'm on something, I try to. I've been incredibly fortunate to work with people that I've been a fan of, so just as a fan of Terry's, what I want to see Terry draw and do, and what haven't I seen before, or what do I want to see more of, and then kind of just the joy of collaborating with him and building that world, and what excited me was how much good and cool and interesting stuff there is in those eras that we kind of have a romantic connection to, and in a way that kind of has to put a lot of blind spots around more ignorant and tone deaf and problematic kind of things of the stories of that era. So like what if we just cherry pick the cool stuff and tell a story for today and about that? So really, my interest is there's just a ferocious imagination involved, and I love the churn and the rapidity. I think there's something that happens when you're producing writers. These guys would write so many words, it becomes kind of like dreaming out loud, and I respond to that kind of surrealist. You can see it in the Fantomas novels too, have that kind of wait, are they asleep? Are they dreaming? What's happening? Is this something very, when you're something about the pressure of the deadlines makes this kind of, I don't know, dream stuff come to the surface more. So that was that. I guess noir. What interests me about noir was not doing noir, but doing a story that wasn't about the people that normally get their stories told in noir. There's enough stories about bad men making poor decisions. I wanted these are the people these are the background characters in someone else's noir story, and how do they get out of it? That was what was interested to me there. And with Jimmy, I think it was wanting to he's one of those characters that kind of just embraces that can sustain the weight of its whole history. I think Batman is one of those characters too, where I think the genius of the Grant Morrison run was it all happened, and what does that do to your sanity?
Yep.
In Batman's case, I guess the answer isn't very good, but in Jimmy's case, it's like it kind of makes you awesome. And the joy of not being burdened by doing. The thing about that Jimmy series, like there was nothing boring. Anytime I got bored, I could stop because it was all those short chapters. Like none of the old Jimmy Olsen books, they were all short stories.
Yep.
They never they never overcame the promise of their premise because they were 8 pages. They didn't have room to, right? It was all so I could just do the cool thing and like, oh, we're done with the cool thing and let's go to the next chapter. Yeah.
Very good.
And Adventureman, like I think to kind of try and loop back is like it's built to accommodate whatever interests me and Terry at any given time. And we sort of I have like an ongoing document of just scraps we've had about like, hey, it'd be cool if we got to this. Or what about that? Or what is this? What do you? And it's just kind of, and I will pick and like, oh, we're gonna do here now, and I can't, I watched I can't remember, is it Horror Express or Terror Express? I made this mistake with you, Terry.
Yeah, Horror Express.
Horror Express with and it's it's a it's kind of like The Thing or a Halt Who Goes There told on a train, and it's Peter Cushing and Christopher Plummer and their friends, and there's the weird zombie thing, but it was on this kind of ornate 30s like Siberian Railroad kind of thing. And so there's a scene in issue 5, right?
Yeah.
On a train, because like, oh, I would love to see you draw the Orient Express, right? Or one of those kind of Lux trains that like. So there's a set of scene there simply because I think it'd be cool to see Terry draw it. And Terry has a list of, oh, this would be neat. I want to do this or I want to do that. And I was kind of look for, oh, great. We don't have to worry about, well, how do we get from here to there? Like, I don't know. There are 180 some books about this guy. We can go everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. The book lends itself to 180s. We can at any point, go somewhere and really change the mood, the atmosphere, the feeling, the color scheme. It really is. It's fun to, as an artist, to not always be doing something new, but find that familiar place that you're at and then be able to take a break and do something for both. I think for the reader, it's great. It's a chance to show the world that Adventureman lived in, which we'll discover is a fairly wide ranging, 180 books worth of material over like 20 years or whatever. I mean, he did a lot of stuff. There's a lot of words that describe a lot of places that we get to fill in those gaps.
Well, I just love the fact that you guys started at Marvel collaborating and now are doing creator-owned stuff. And I imagine that just opens both of your imaginations to pursue these other things and not be confined in the 616 universe.
I know for me personally, I mean, now that I'm well into the second arc, what a thrill it is to be back working on something that I created, or Matt, I mean, obviously Matt and I created, we created. Sure. And so it's a world that I'm comfortable with. And then it's like, I created it, I'm comfortable there, and then I'm adding to it. And so every page that I draw, I'm adding a little bit more details to that world. It's a comfortable world that we've established, but then we're continually building on it. And it's like, well, I'm getting paid to be in a world I want to be in and create it, keep adding to it. I mean, that's the thing that's kind of keeps me going to the pages every day. The book itself is a lot of hours at the table to produce, but it's that creative spark that I'm getting every day in that world that we've created. It's a fun place to be at. And it's and this year has been a good year to be somewhere else. I must admit, I'm glad I spent this year in Adventureman's New York. It's been a nice reprieve from reality.
And just by virtue of it being an original piece, we could take the time we needed to make it right. Because it is a world you, Terry, have built brick by brick in some cases. And it's like, hey, you know what? That does not serve, the 28-day deadline does not serve that kind of world, So we totally let it grow. Yeah, it's been just terrific and entirely needed. Just creatively, a great place to visit. and never not a great place to visit. And I'm always startled how fun it is to do and how fast it goes when I'm there, how fast it feels. It has never once felt like work, which is crazy because it's not any different than any of the other things I've written, right? Like it's the same process, but is that it is just a welcome blast of joy to be a part of, and a welcome reprieve for sure.
Very good. Sean says he's waiting for, I assume he ordered his Adventureman hardcover. Love the first series. Want more? Well, you just heard Terry say he's working on volume 2 right now. And also the fact that if people don't know, the hardcover came out December 9th, right, Terry?
Correct. Yeah. December 9th.
Thanks, man. Seriously.
Science.
There you go.
Huge.
Hold on.
I'll grab one of the issues.
Yeah, 171 pages, as Terry let me know. I was gonna, when Matt comes back, we'll single him out and let him show the book. But thanks, man. Seriously, you sent me the PDF of the collected piece today,
right?
And you did offer earlier to send me the hardcover. If I didn't respond, I apologize. Look at that.
Here's the the inferior physical issue. Look. Oh my God! It's like a Cadillac. It's the cat. Look at that. It's so
ginormous.
It's so wonderful. Oh boy, it's beautiful.
Absolutely, and 171 pages. And the great thing is, lots of back matter as well after the story's over. So no, it's a great collection, guys, truly, and really talks about your collaboration as well. Beautiful character sketches from Terry, as Matt is kind of pouring over the descriptions of the cast, both Adventureman's crew and then also Claire's family and the villains, of course.
Yeah, and something that I'm sorry, and some of that just no one until you have the two books side by side. The book, the hardcover is actually a good inch wider. It's a bigger book, but it's actually wider as well. There's stuff that you do not see in the comic book that gets cropped off that is actually printed in the hardcover. So there's actually almost every single page. There's actually new artwork that you did not see in the comic book.
It's like the difference between pan and scan and widescreen.
It is. It really is. It's like standard definition, high definitions. That where all of a sudden it's like, where'd they get that extra material? Well, I drew the extra material because I drew the book wide for the wide format, but knew where to crop it for the comic book format.
So I remember you telling me that, Terry. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's on the opening splash that shows the adventure team for the first time. There's in the hardcover, the wide version. There's actually oranges over on the side that you wouldn't have seen in the regular comic book. I was kind of looking at the details that popped up because it's been a while since I'd looked, and I thought it was pretty neat bonus for the reader.
Excuse me, we've got a lot of questions already, and some of them are about the book, but also some other past projects here and there. Let's see. Denny Dude asks, how many issues of Jimmy Olsen, Matt, did you need to, do you think you ended up reading before you started the limited series?
Most of them, honestly.
I bet.
I had a digital archive of the first sort of 180, whatever, 160, whatever issues of the Silver Age book, and then a bunch of an awful lot of it. I mean, I try not to. I don't want anybody else to feel like they have to do homework, but I always try to do my homework on everything, So a lot. I got a lot.
How many issues was that?
A lot of crazy stories in that book.
How many was that? Like 60? But like 100 issues? What was that?
It was like 180 plus the first time around. 160 something, and then there's been kind of other bits and bobs kind of throughout.
Okay. I'm pretty certain in the 50s, Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane outsold the regular Superman books.
That's crazy.
And if not, they certainly did incredibly well. And a lot of it was a testament to the series, the TV series. What's that, Matt?
Long enough to last 20 years, that's for sure. Yeah. It's amazing too, those old books where they had to put in the statement from the publisher that had to be printed once a year, so it could be sent via mail, and they would have what the circulation was, and it's like, Jimmy Olsen was DC's lowest selling book. It only sold 380,000 copies a month.
Yep. Those were the days.
Those were the days.
Yeah, what are you gonna do, man? No, sadly, I caught the tail end. I remember reading Superman family, where after the single issues died off, they put the features into that anthology. And I'm sure I've told you before, when it comes to Jimmy, I love his Mr. Action years when he
Yeah,
was the investigative reporter.
he called himself that once in our book, and then we got him in the outfit later on. I didn't get them. I didn't get to say the logo, which is always one of my favorite gags. But yeah, no, Jimmy with mutton chops and long with it hair is just so great. Like every like DC Youth comics always feel like comics that were made by narcs. None is never more true than in old Jimmy Olsen's. Like there's something that feels like this is made by a 50-year-old man trying to convince people he's 20. This is weird.
Exactly. Go-go chicks are cool.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, like Roger Sterling's side project or something.
You are not wrong. Let's see. Oh, Ramsey says, let's see. I was excited for Adventureman since it was first spoken about a few years ago. How did the comic evolve from the initial pitch and designs?
It feels, I mean, it gets more specific. Like part of the joy of collaborating with Terry, I've found, is how much my interpretation will adapt to his interpretation. Like I feel like I learn a lot from his sketching and his process, and kind of looking at the characters and watching how he explores them. It very much influences like how they act and what they do. And it's like some of that stuff has changed, but it was all reacting to what Terry was producing. But like the core of the story, like the fundamental thing is largely what we kind of started off with.
Yeah, I think
there are like places we know we're going that keep kind of getting bumped, either move up or move back. But like it's to incorporate and to interpret, to incorporate these other kind of things that suddenly we want to spend time with. So it remains organic, but it's very much to my recollection anyway, Terry, you might remember different, but it feels like this is about what we started with, like where we were in.
Yeah, I know. It's cool that your initial proposal for the story had a beginning, middle, and an end. At least, and that led us at a launching point at that end. We could either stop there or keep going. And we're maybe halfway through that initial outline, I think. And but yeah, it was the story beats that the characters needed to hit has stayed the same, and we've just created a world, both the old world and the modern age, and the characters. A lot of the characters have changed quite a bit, which is that's just time. And then it's like, what do I feel like drawing now? Which it's been awesome that I wasn't pigeonholed into something 10 years ago that has not changed. I think Adventureman, the main Adventureman, and I think Claire are almost exactly the same visually as my initial ideas. It's just that everybody else has changed quite a bit. A lot. I mean, 180 or brand new essentially, but maybe in name and no, even the names have changed quite a bit.
Yeah,
I think
I'm terrible with names. It's always the last thing I do. Names are, and I'm the worst with names.
Yeah, I think that maybe changed some in the story. I think we've been going, have we named this yet? So yeah.
Well, and also what I like too is you've got Adventureman's crew that is absolutely a great take on all those great pulp heroes who had their crew behind them that all had special skills and things like that. But on Claire's side, her family is a blended family, and I don't know thoughts on that, guys.
I know just initially. I know on my part, I wanted a variety of things to draw, and making sure that the family was as diverse as possible for me as an artist is a heck of a lot easier to draw an 8 or 9 person dinner table scene with characters that don't look exactly the same. I mean, I'm just imagining our opening scene with the Claire's family, how difficult that been to draw. That was 7 blonde-haired, blue-eyed sisters. I mean, the nightmare, and it's so much more fun to draw a variety of characters, and it lends us. And again, it opens up the story so much, having who are all these characters. So.
Yeah, and in its inception, being about a family of adopted sisters, like the sisters were really important. It kind of, this was sort of a thing that I had it's very, very consciously writing a story for my daughter, And I tried once before, and it kind of became something not for kids. So this was kind of remained though, like, oh, I'm gonna write a story about a superhero mom and her sisters. And I'm gonna write a story about Wonder Woman, right? And that everything else just kind of grew out of like, well, what's interesting? What do I want to see around this table? What haven't I seen before? And how can you take the, rather than the kind of racist or colonial or imperial tropes, like how can you take the narrative tropes, the fictive tropes, right? The magician character or the tinkerer, the pilot. How can we translate that stuff to the modern era? Like, let's take that and apply it to this family that has found itself. And there's a kind of whole story about who that family is and how they came to be that, like, I don't know that we'll ever get around to telling, but like we know it.
Right.
And it's sure. And what's important is that bringing together of everyone, right? This is kind of the metaphor throughout the story is like you get the gang together when you need help, right? And so to have that, building it out from like whether it's what are they having on the dinner table on Shabbat night, right? Or what are they having? Where do they work? How do all of this stuff kind of all is in service of how can we do all the cool stuff that we want to do and root it in this story about getting the gang together, right? So
very cool.
Yeah.
Vincenzo asks, well, there's Matt, but we also need to talk about Chip, or you won't sleep tonight. So Terry, what was it like working with Zdarsky on X-Men Fantastic Four? That's the last time Terry and I talked was in mid-story on that miniseries. Great, well done, guy. Absolutely, you and Chip did a hell of a job with that story.
Yeah, no, that was an amazing setup for me to not to say no to for a job. Having Chip write it, having it be the X-Men and Fantastic Four, X-Men, who I was super familiar with from working with Matt on Uncanny, and obviously grew up with them. But the FF was something that was actually the one book that I really collected regularly as a child. That's like the one book I did read. It was the John Byrne era, and it's like every issue or two, it's something. This is when I was just starting to read or learning about the Marvel Universe, and he was exploring the Marvel Universe the whole time in that book. And it's like, I didn't know who any of these characters were, but it was like a guidebook to the Marvel Universe. So that's my childhood thing to finally, as an adult, to draw the FF and having a story that actually was based on a miniseries from the 80s, but then also that was coming straight out of the Jonathan Hickman's X-Men stuff, which everybody is enjoying. So it was a real good, mix of all these really cool things I couldn't say no to. And then Chip's been doing a lot of great writing lately, so the chance to work with him on it, and someone who is an artist as well. So I was comfortable from the get-go knowing that he would write a script that would be a pleasure to draw. And it was a perfect assignment for me to work on in so many ways. And it was a break right after drawing the bulk of Adventureman, so it was fun to work on a superhero story as kind of a stretch my legs, I guess.
I can't remember if I asked you or Chip this question before, Terry, but there are pages in that miniseries that are very Hickman-esque in terms of Reed's notes on the X-Men and stuff. And it's a great part of the story. For people who haven't read it, it's recent enough that I wouldn't want to spoil it because I think it was used to great effect as far as being part of the drama of the story, as well as just something cool to look at. Did you do those pages or did John do those pages?
Chip.
Chip did those pages. Wow.
It's really cool. Chip designed the logo. Chip did he designed the intro pages. He designed the back matter. It was really cool because when you have the creative people on the book doing the bulk of the creative stuff, you're getting a real unified vision for the publication. Yeah. I mean, with the fewer hands in that area, really leads to a much stronger book. And
just as an artist writing for another artist would be there's an understanding there,
right?
Chip has that I don't, right? Like,
yeah, sure. No, but I mean, you have the advantage of now writing for all these years. You know, for the new writer, it's someone who's already drawn all the comics Chip has. I find that great, but I mean, that's a whole thing, is to figuring out what makes the one being a comic book writer a comic book writer. Do they want to draw comics, written through their own ones, you know, or they wrote movies, or they worked in fiction. You're telling a story, but then it's figuring out how you tell a story in this particular medium, and that's the trick. A lot of times, it's nice to work with an artist that already knows how to do that stuff, and they can break down the story correctly for someone who writes novels, let's say, and who can't really figure out how pages work. But fortunately, the artists know how to do that. So that's, I mean, in my career, I've done a lot of things working with different people from different mediums. But when it's someone who, Matt does an amazing job. There's not a page that Matt's written in our whole time together that doesn't make sense and doesn't flow. I don't think I've had to make any kind of a change to say this isn't going to fit on this page. And Chip, you know, the same thing. It's so nice to be able to just kind of read the script, do your layouts, just know that it works, not have to question how do I make this work, or does this work? You know, that's because there are times you're going, I'm not so sure this works. I hope someone edited this better than me.
Zach has two good questions. First, love Adventureman. It's the best new series this year. I remember Matt saying that you guys were doing Marvel style back on your Defenders run. Are you doing something similar here?
Yeah. And you know, my Marvel style somehow takes me longer to write than full script, and it's pretty easy to tell what I'm thinking in terms of page breakdowns based on where the paragraphs are. But like, it's still very Marvel style, and sometimes there'll be placeholder. There's a lot of placeholder dialogue. He'll say something like this, they'll say something like that, or even like there are a couple of times where, like, just to make sure I get this, like, there will be dialogue and like, okay, so I know these 4 panels have to be here because this is the back and forth that has to happen. But like, for the most part, I'll write a plot style and then adapt based on what we get. And it was Terry was the first person I wrote plot style for, and I really enjoy it. I think it's a better is different, weird word. It's a more fulfilling collaborative experience because it feels very collaborative. It feels very, there's a lot of trust involved that kind of full script takes away, and full script feels very dictatorial, and sometimes that's uncomfortable way for me to work. So I like to let Terry handle the pictures, because I'm not going to outright his hand and eye, you know. So let me adapt around what you come up with this, and it's remains a part of the fun of how the book works, is kind of getting to write it twice, you know, doing it the first time and then getting to see what I get, you know, kind of there's that yes and kind of spirit to it.
Sure. Well, that's where the collaboration comes in. Henry wants to know, and I'm ready with more pages from the hardcover, but he's asking Terry if you can show us any artwork.
Yes.
It's been a good day today. You shared right before. I can see it behind you.
So it shows me live.
There you go.
No pressure.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Well, we don't want you to spoil something that you can't show if you're, you know.
Spoilers. There's a huge cast.
here we go. Hold on.
Nice.
There you go. Other way. There you are. There you are.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
And there's something, especially in Terry's kind of character exploration, that I somehow hadn't seen until we started Adventureman, and like, oh, there is Disney. There's a love of animation in you, and a love of that kind of classic Disney. There's such I get so much out of your pencil explorations, and then kind of seeing how everybody fits together and comes together. It's just like, oh, I know how this feels. I know where we are. I know. Yeah, I love it. It's great.
A
Yeah,
lot of emotion.
Disney is a big. Animated, the old school Disney animation stuff was a huge influence on me. That, for one thing, these guys were just extremely well trained artists who had to work and tell stories through drawings again. And I've learned so much from looking at that stuff and incorporating that back into what I do, especially telling stories with faces. And, I always say this, it's like we're lands on paper, and, you're drawing real people with pencil and ink as opposed to a camera filming someone. So there's these tricks of explaining how people feel, and they did it so well in animation. It's a real good shortcut, I guess, to real people.
And then Zach wants to
know the same font reads the same, right? So you don't have the benefit of sound.
Right.
It's even more of an onus of distinction and characterization and on the artist in this.
Yeah, especially I know in this book that I've pushed that because there are so many characters. Yeah. There's the 10 family members, and then there's the I don't know, there's 30 pretty well shown characters I think about now, between the heroes, the villains from the old cast, and then the new cast. That's a pretty wide cast, and it's without having them be actual actors, you've got to take these little things that you push and pull that you did in animation. So yeah.
Denny wants to know, Matt, and I already know the answer to this, and this is why I'm glad that you and I are friends, and same with Kel for that matter. But some of the literary influences that factored into Adventureman. Again, looking at the back matter at the back of the hardcover, two of my favorite Philip Jose Farmer books were certainly cited.
Yeah, it's my friend Greg Thompson gave me a copy of his Apocalyptic Life by Farmer, and it's like the book that Claire finds. It supposes that all of the Doc Savage stories were real and puts it all together in like a concordance, right? Like he eats this, he goes here, he lives there. This is what's in this room. This is what's in that room. And it's like I have this like a James, but Kingsley Amis wrote a James Bond one. Yep. Called Every Man His Own 007, the Book of Bond. Farmer did one for Tarzan as well. Like it's kind of a weird sub genre that I admire. So that that has the virtue of being the coolest parts of all 200 or whatever Doc Savage books, right? You don't have to. It's like, oh great, I just get all killer, no filler, right? And I really liked some of the spider stuff that I read. There's a. I can grab it real quick, actually.
Sure. For people who don't know, Philip Jose Farmer, Doc Savage, his Apocalyptic Life, and Tarzan Alive are the two Farmer books.
Yeah, Norval Page's Spider. There's one in particular, Spider versus the Empire State, which is about how a pulp hero fights against a fascist government rising in the big city, which is crazy because it could never happen here. But yeah, so this is the Black Police trilogy. It's like that just right there gets my engine going. That was the some of the shadow stuff. Almost more of the radio plays than the books.
Interesting.
Because sort of how, even though it's an entirely sonic experience, the way that they tell stories using only sound and not visuals there's an analog to comics there. Like, we're going to tell stories using all visuals and no sound. So there's a kind of, really like Fritz Lang's kind of early serials, and then like his first, all three of the Mabuza movies that he made are great. But that has that very, if you like, between M and Testament of Dr. Mabuza, where he's using sound for the first two times. Like it's such a part of the story, and how, whether it's the killer whistling in M, and that's how the killer's coming, or there's all kinds of sound stuff in the Mabuza stuff. The Norbert Jacques Mabuza novels are a lot of fun. I think I already talked about the Judex is really great, and Phantomas, the Phantomas novels are very, there's a a jewel thief who's tied up upside down inside of a cathedral bell, and then like the bell chimes and the bell is smashing him, and sort of blood and diamonds are raining down into the streets, and like that's great. Like just give me that. Like spare me the 230 pages to get to that moment, right? Like, but yeah, that kind of stuff just will fire off all kinds of ideas and notions.
And then Henry wants to know, Terry, your favorite artists and influences. It's funny. We played the Alex Ross promo before the interview started, and Alex and I were talking about James Bama and the Doc Savage covers he did, and how much that influences like his Superman, and also his Captain America for that matter.
Yeah, I'd say I didn't doing this book as I've been doing the book. It's actually more. I'd say more of the illustrators at the time that who were actually producing work at that time in the 30s and 40s are the ones I'm really looking at to study what it kind of gives me a good eye on the culture and what people were really wearing and doing.
Yeah.
And then I jump from that. But a lot of the color schemes and stuff that were in there are really big influence. It's really me actually looking at the stuff of the actual time. Even though it's a pulp world, I'm still looking at stuff that was in Germany or in France or wherever during those time periods, because you're just getting such a great mix of that stuff that I'm pulling from here and from there. Not so much, I read Tom Strong when it came out, and this is of essence something like Tom Strong. But the thing is, I've not looked at Tom Strong since I read it, in the 2000s, I guess. And
sure.
So there's things that I imagine that's like Tom Strong or like Doc Savage, but I've not actually been looking at that stuff while doing it. It's been creating my own world out of that stuff, out of the stuff from the period, or like I'm watching a video game and I'm seeing the design stuff for that, and I'm pulling stuff from there, things that are just not related to anything else in the book. So it's finding those influences from other places, like from animation or from fantasy art from the 1890s. There's something goofy in there. It's like, no, that's a great idea. No one's doing anything like this. This is creepy. This is using these colors. It just will feel like nothing else that's anybody's done in this era.
I don't know the last time you were in San Diego, but I always, when I get to go, I always go to that one corner booth that has original paintings of covers and spot illustrations from those vintage magazines.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. That stuff is ridiculously beautiful. And if I had money to burn, I'd go home with half the tent, for God's sake, or whatever.
No, I go take my breaks in those booths when I'm at San Diego. Man, those booths are like I don't know, five rows down from where our booth is every year. I love hanging out there, and brand new material. It's a lot of the same artists, but then it's a lot of artists you didn't know, because between 1890 and 1950 or 60, there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of illustrators, and we only know one or two from each year. Where they're producing so much stuff. There was so much amazing material that we haven't seen, and we don't know who these people are, but the level of craft and of education and art in that time period was so high that everything that came out was well done, even if it was for the pulp books. So still, those guys today would be amazing artists, even though they were just working for cheap.
Right. You're totally right, man. No, you're right. They were really on the low rung of publication and stuff. And my God, they're knocking it out. I know there was a interior shadow artist. I want to say Everett, and I can't remember his last name. But the guy was doing like shadow interiors, and then later on painted Gerald Ford's president. Say his name again.
Everett Kinsler?
Yes. And I was going to say Kunstler or Kinsler, but yeah, there you go. That's his name. Yeah. He ended up being a real famous portrait painter, and I think even an educator. I think he has a couple of art books that you can find. Sure.
Everybody wanted to be. They all wanted to be Linebecker, and then they all wanted to be Rockwell, and there was only a couple of those left. And but the thing is that the training was all there to be that good. It's just there was to be the top. There's only so much space. But So yeah, it's always fun to discover new stuff, especially in person. You see the stuff in books or in worn out magazines, but to see the actual original illustration, the original sizes is pretty impressive. So, J.C. Linebacker is someone that's still a huge influence on me. And if you look at the way I do folds or clothing or the way I color clothing, it's Linebacker. I learned so much from that guy. It's just amazing how good he is.
That's awesome. Matt, I was scrolling through the questions to see, I can't find the specific one, but someone had asked, now that you've wrapped up Jimmy Olsen, are there more DC books in your immediate future?
My immediate future is, aside from Adventureman, is being our home teleschooling adjunct. Sort of doing nothing but that really right now. I don't know. Hey, school gets out in June, so ask me again in the summertime. We'll see.
Fair enough. I understand it. I know Kelly Sue and Phil are busy with their Wonder Woman Black Label.
She was already pregnant with a couple of things, and I was in a state when kind of quarantine came down where I was like, well, I'm kind of wrapping stuff up largely. So rather than take on new work or start new projects, I sort of cut everybody loose and begged out of what commitments I had. And aside from keeping the Adventureman train rolling, I'm psyched because today I'm on winter break. After this, everybody's school ended today. So, and for the first time since, leaving school, I have a winter break. I realized my alarm went off today. I'm like, I'm not going to have to hear this for 3 weeks. This is great. So yeah, man, I'm about to bust out of here like Fred Flintstone when the
nice, goes. Absolutely. Tara, I don't know if I've asked you before. Do you have school age kids?
No, we have school age cats.
There you go.
One school age cats and one school age horse.
The horse coming soon to the page of Adventureman. So we're very,
awesome.
Very excited.
Yes, Rachel's thrilled. Rachel's always had horses, and she's actually out right now. Instead of inking Adventureman, she's out riding her horse, which is great because it's nice for us to have, especially in a quarantine, have our own space. Now
it's also now that it's in the book, like everything horse related is a tax write-off.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're stoked, and that's something that Matt just said. It's like, oh my gosh, it couldn't be something. This is the coolest thing about Adventureman. Matt and I talk about it. He writes a script, I draw the stuff back and forth, and every time we talk about some things, and then he adds something to it, and then I take that, and then I add something to it, and it's like we're not trying to outdo each other, but we're almost trying to outdoing Adventureman. Each new set of pages, or there's something new there that wasn't there before, and it's such an improvement on what we initially talked about. It's growing exponentially into all those really cool, fun things that we didn't plan on doing, such as this horse stuff that's going to be coming up. The next arc is, I don't know. I'm so excited to be doing it. It's it sounds bad, but it's so fun to be able to be doing fun stuff that you're excited about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
And too, to hey, I know we've got a cast of like 90. I need to make it 91. It's always like, oh boy, I hope this is all right. But like, it remains it just feels like very, 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 it feels like what being in a band felt like. It's very collaborative, and everyone's, like, oh, right, this and that, and we're going to go here, and we're going to go there.
Yeah.
There's a cowboy coming.
Is Rachel a pulp fan? I mean, what's her interest in the pulp area of the project?
Oh well, boy, good question.
She likes movies, whatever,
Yeah, I don't know. She likes doing. If I'm excited about something, it shows on the page, and she's very happy to be working on stuff that I'm excited about, because that when I do my best work, she can tell, and it makes her enjoy her job much more than just simply tracing stuff. So anything that I'm excited about, she is by her job excited about it, because she's getting quality material to ink, and that's really true.
And to see how the two, like, it goes from pencil is the pencils are one kind of remarkable. Then the ink adds a whole other kind of remarkable, and then you color it again, and it feels like there's that conversation is going on between the two of you collaboratively.
Yeah.
And that's amazing to see. Like I get these kind of 3 bites of that apple on the way to getting the book out the door, and it's just so great.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I always think of projects in color, and it's so nice to be at this stage in my career where I'm able to do the color myself because, I grew up a fan of painting, and so obviously that's fully rendered color, and so I see everything in color. I for over a decade I've been able to do all my covers full color, so that was nice. But then to be able to work daily thinking about color and knowing that anything I put down is going to be, I'm putting something down knowing that the final stage is the color stage, and it's atmosphere, it's mood, it's shows the excitement, shows it does so much of the storytelling, and it sounds simple, but you get to work with so much pretty things. I mean, just things you don't expect to have happen, and it's a color is a crazy beast to work with. You put 2 colors by each other, and all of a sudden it becomes something else. So there's a lot of spontaneity in the work. Whereas when you're drawing pages, a lot of times it is simply making the donuts or laying the bricks. You know that you have to put these bricks down in order for this thing to stand up. Otherwise, it's not going to stand. With color, I know basically where I'm going, but there's a lot of happy accidents that I run with.
And there's tone. It adds a tone that isn't present until that. And I know that's kind of the most obvious thing in the world. Like, color is different than black and white, but like it's a tone that you heard.
Right.
Yeah. Or saw, I guess, if we're using tone in a visual sense, that until it was produced and it was like, it remains a process of discovery, which is just.
Yeah. That's hilarious because I will give Rachel a page or a cover to work on, and she's like, it's okay. I go, wait till you see it in color, because these lines are just here as a template for me to put color on, because I know where it's going.
I get to a place in a collaboration where I feel like I know how to write for somebody, or at least I know what this is going to look like. Right? It's not I know kind of vaguely. I feel it like, okay, I know where we are. I know what I'm going to get back, ish. And the color has so added a new level of, oh wait, I don't know. I haven't figured out how to write for you for color yet. And so I've noticed since the final colors were coming in, like I will write, I don't know what this is going to look like. And that's like, let's find out. What is this color? What are these colors? Like that train sequence is a perfect example of like, what does this look like? I don't know. Let's find out. Like then that I don't know. It stays exciting and it stays joyful and like trying to, like it's as though you had a third arm that I never had seen, but suddenly there's this new tool. And I mean, I knew it from your covers, but like covers aren't sequentials, and covers aren't, you can't color them like that. Like the page that John just looked at is all, the pencils were kind of all X's. Then the inks came and it's Rachel pullouts and darkness. And it's like, oh man, that's a great, super bunch of the page, I think after this with Adventureman getting the call and cracking his knuckles. And then the colors happen and it's in opposite of that kind of cool green, and like the sash, the red of the sash is there. And like, everything snaps together in an entirely different way when that happens.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, there's times where I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. And that's where I kind of go on the edge a little bit more and just say, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to do. So let's just do something 180 from what I've done on the previous pages, which sometimes you jump and you hope you have a parachute when you go. And I guess that's the years of experience that you have that you'll get there in the end. But yeah, it's, it's so fun to be able to do everything that you see in your head. It's like doing, Clayton Cowles is our letterer, but I do the bulk of the sound effects because, again, that's something that I grew up a gigantic fan of Calvin and Hobbes, and Calvin and Hobbes is all about, it's a great telling, a great story, but visually there's the sound effects, and then he does these open panels where it's just there's no background, it's just white. And I learned so much storytelling, or just digested so much storytelling from reading those comics. And on a creator-owned book, I can let all that stuff out now. I can open up panels where I want to, and do the sound effects to tell the story. That we don't need to draw all this kind of stuff in order to have it. We can use it using sound effects. So it's the same thing, and that's the other tool in our box to go along with color. It just adds to again. It's like I was saying earlier about more singular visions or fewer visions getting in the way to get the story across. That things aren't getting so diluted, but you're getting more of a final vision.
Jimmy wants to know, Matt, what was it like back in 2013 being one of Marvel's architects?
Oh, miserable. Because suddenly our bosses were saying we were more special than all of the other guys that were working there, and it was best of intentions, worst of application. Like, it was awful. It made my stomach. It still makes my stomach hurt.
What year was your Defender?
I'm wearing like winter. I'm trudging 6 blocks through New York slush, winter boots, and they take pictures. I'm like, well, I'm wearing these big winter boots. They're going to crop the picture, right? So I don't look like, the Nook of the fucking North underneath, right? Nope. We're just going to run the whole thing. It was spook. It was like the success of like the Young Guns stuff that they do with the artists. Like, again, I totally understand the intention, but it suddenly felt like them taking a group of us and saying, no, these are the architects, so only their stories that matter. And it felt like all of our, like we're insulting all of our friends, and like, oh boy, no, sure. I was a bad fit. I was a poor architect. All of my bridges fell down.
Okay. That's
engineering, right?
It's all right.
What year was Defenders for you guys? Do you remember?
2012.
I was going to say it was around that time.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, yeah, because I know XMen Uncanny was 2008, 2010, and then came back to Defenders.
That feels about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was always the one of your collaborations with Marvel that I was really disappointed didn't go longer than 12, because I loved it. I thought it was going to be great. Yeah. Thank you. But again, now with Adventureman,
you can see the Defenders strategy at play in Adventureman, because Defenders was very much this group is going to kind of take this winding path through all these cul-de-sacs of Marvel history and continuity and worlds and realities and stuff. We're only going to stay long enough to do the cool stuff, and then we're going to go. So that kind of hit it and quit it sensibility from Defenders, I think, ported right over to Adventureman in a way I kind of hadn't articulated or thought about till like literally just now. But that whole feeling of like, all right, we're going to do a Namor issue. Okay, great. Now we're going to do this. We're going to do that. Like, just, get to the good stuff.
And Matt, earlier somebody had written, and certainly based on last week's Marvel investor meeting and what we saw of what's coming in the Hawkeye series, everyone's thinking back to your run with David on that. Any thoughts on that of what we've seen? And flattering, I'm sure, but
it's great. It's awesome. Cool. That's amazing. The dog's name is Jolt, and you can follow him on Instagram at jolt.of.genius. And Jolt's mom and dad are figuring out how cool it is that Jolt is playing a pizza dog. So there's been some. If you like following animals on Instagram, Jolt of Genius is the
that's
dog playing Lucky. So
I saw that. I wondered what that was.
Yeah. Literally, I posted a picture today of the dog with a fork in its mouth, sitting in front of a piece of pizza. Like, it's not bad. You're good at this.
I hope to see the Russian track wearing track clothes mafia in the.
Yeah, sure. Any chance we have to make cosplay accessible to the exceedingly lazy? That's why they wear sweatpants and t-shirts, and so they have that book. Like, it's going to be easy.
my dad's final years were spent in tracksuits. So when that came out, I'm like, oh, I wish my father could have seen this. He would have been very embarrassed and gotten out of the track clothes. Well, they're comfortable. You're not going to run or anything, are you, Dad? No. Okay. Good for you.
Just my mouth. Yeah. No.
It's true.
No, it's pretty crazy to see.
That's awesome, man. No, that's great. What else, guys? I mean, I think we're doing good. We had a lovely hour, and truly, Adventureman, can't recommend it enough. Jimmy says, I'm not going to lie, I haven't read it yet, but based on your guys' enthusiasm,
son of a bitch.
Well, but he says based on the enthusiasm he's heard now,
right. Jimmy,
he's going to pick it
up. It's I always have trouble looking at my own stuff. Boy, does this hardcover, like, you're right, like it was a joy when it showed up. Like, I was like, oh, I hadn't, reading the math of how big it was doesn't translate to holding the physical object, and just to, like, it's such a big, beautiful work, and to see the stuff that Terry and Rachel take me out of it entirely. Just as a visual experience, it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever been associated with in my career. Like it's such a it's insane. Like, really, we made this we can, wow, really, like, it was brand new to see it.
Yeah, no, it's the one good thing is it's as big as it is, it actually feels pretty good in your hand too. I remember looking at the page count and I was like, oh God, I hope this book isn't one of those books you can't read. There's that, the EC book, Matt, that we were talking about that I got. Yeah. Holy cow, things like it's a murder weapon. It's a lot of work.
Tashin, I think it's actually still in their catalog, which I have right there, and I've looked through, but it's got a Helmut Newton photograph on the cover, so I can't. But they actually have a Tashin book stand.
Okay.
Yes.
And I mine is literally, it's this kind of a plexiglass X that the thing sits in, and like that is I've got mine sitting on a table over there because
it'll cut your circulation off if you got it on your lap. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's my fear. Adventureman was going to be this just this too big to read, but I'm very pleased with the actual feel of the book. The text, actually, the actual feel of the book. It feels really nice. Actually, the cover is very nice feeling, but the weight of it compared to, I don't know if it's because it's wider that it reads better that way. Because generally, when a book's too big, you can't read it. But this book, you can actually, it opens up nice, and I'm very pleased with how the actual physical book looks. I really don't look at it much because I spent so many hours getting that book out, doing corrections, and then corrections on those corrections, and then corrections on those corrections. I'm really sick of it, but I'm super pleased with the final result.
Good timing too with the hardcover coming out, because all those dinner scenes really do have a holiday feel to them, and I thought that was kind of nice.
Yeah, and that's funny. The sort of the next story is a holiday season story. It's very so we're kind of carrying the theme over.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's straight in. So.
Hey, it's Bo Smith's birthday. Happy birthday, Bo.
Hey, Bo, happy birthday. Oh my gosh, Bo, thank you.
Folks that read Adventureman will then become missionaries for the book. Absolutely, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
I quite agree.
Thanks. It's I mean, I'm very pleased with it. Matt and I have talked about this book for a decade, and to have it out now, and now to be into the first book's out now, and we're onto the second arc, it feels so good because it's a world we spent all this time creating. But as I said earlier in the interview, it's a world that we're happy to be in, and to keep expanding. And we're finding that, which as a creator, we're finding you can keep pushing the book, and that's finding new stuff to play with. Which a lot of times you start hitting the wall, and I think our walls just keep expanding on us, which is terrific.
We talked about it like being like our Raiders or our Hellboy, and sort of like what are we interested in now? What is this story about? And then it's the cast is the same, but we're going to go here, we're going to go there, and kind of it's a perfect for creators with inattentive ADHD, I guess. But it keeps it being new. It stops it. It's work, but it stops it from feeling rote and repetitive.
Ramsey wanted to know, Matt, if you and the brothers are going to be getting back together to do something new for Casanova.
Yeah, we've actually got like 3 or 4 issues in the can, which is weird. So yeah, I guess that's the other. Yeah, there's a project they're working on that I don't think is public. And in between, they've got some Casanova. They'll have some cast to work on too. I think we'll bank. I don't know why we're sitting on them. I guess we'll do it so we don't just put 3 issues out and then go away for a year. But yeah, it's in progress. I keep forgetting that those aren't actually out in the world and those only exist on 3 hard drives. But yeah, no, more Casanova is coming soon for sure.
That's cool. I met them when I was at Rose City back in the summer of 2019.
Oh yeah,
and they were on an audio call with me like 5 or 6 years ago, but they were great. And literally, they're like, "Have we done your show yet?" I'm like, "Yeah, a long time ago, but damn, man, it's great to meet you guys." I'm like, "Please come back." And they're like, "When we have something new, we promise we'll come back." I'm like, "All right, cool." Yeah, they're great. Very funny. No, that's great. And Tara, anything? I mean, again, you're busy with Adventureman, obviously. Any other covers coming up?
Actually, the last. That's why I was late to get into this. I just turned in there's a new XMen book launching. I don't know, the spring sometime. I just turned the colors in for. So there's that. Rachel and I are doing a page for the Captain America tribute book that's coming out in I think it's March or so, which is pretty cool. They're taking all the old Kirby stories, and each artist is doing a page. And so we're doing one of those, and I got a chance to draw. They let us. It was early enough into the project. I was able to pick a page, and I found one with Giant Man, Iron Man, Thor, Namor, Undersea, just all this stuff that I'd never really done before. And then I'm doing a Batman. Actually, I've done it already. I've done a Batman black and white that'll be coming out this spring. Part of the Batman black and white line. And I picked. I was asked to write and draw my own story, but I didn't want to do it because I was doing Adventureman. And I didn't want my brain to go too far off. And so I asked Becky Cloonan to write it. And she wrote, we were kind of bouncing stuff around. And I was on a bike ride, and I had all these ideas pop in my head about this kind of a storyline. And I fired it off to her. And she made a story out of it. I was like, wow, 8 pages, everything that I said, you turned that into a story. So that'll be coming out this spring.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that series is back. And it's funny, last time I talked to Chip, he was telling me about his black and white story. And then, lo and behold, we now find out that he's writing Batman for that new anthology that DC just announced.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I forgot. I always forget to ask that I be introduced as artist of Batman. But Chip and I did the Detective 1027 story together, and I drew a part of one of the panels. Technically, I'm now artist of Batman, and I want to be introduced as such. I always forget. It's very new to me to be the artist of Batman. I mean, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I gotta. Yeah.
There you go. Well, should you guys come back to DC and do a project together, Jimmy would love to see you guys do a John Stewart story.
Like a Daily Show, or like
I'm thinking Green Lantern. I'd like to see a Daily Show John Stewart story.
That's cool.
Absolutely.
The making of Sweetwater. That'll be awesome.
And I meant to mention this earlier regarding Adventureman, and especially again the what would you call that, Terry? Those pages, like I said, that look like an old theater and that kind of retro. I don't know.
Oh boy. Well,
I don't know.
No. Well, there's Matt came up with Ray Gun Noir, Diesel Punk, Steampunk. Art Deco is the main driving art style of the book.
Sure. Because I didn't know if the pages,
Dodson Deco, remake.
Yeah, I didn't know if the pages. Yeah, Dodson Deco. That's very good. I didn't know if the pages themselves were like classified as some sort of.
Do you mean like the end papers
thing
and stuff, like the physical parts of the book, like the?
Oh, okay. The end papers.
Yeah.
Here, I'm up there.
There's a designer we work with.
Yeah. This stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's the end pages that are a designer who designed the logo, and he actually designed everything.
Oh, that looks great.
These kind of amazing title pages.
It's Leonardo. Leonardo did all that work.
Well, because I was going to say last Friday, literally, on Turner Classic Movies, they did this amazing documentary about old movie houses that are still up, and just again the beautiful design in those and everything. So I thought that was kind of interesting timing.
Yeah, Leonardo and I have been talking for a couple of years about getting this what the logo would be for this book, which is tricky because of the different time periods and different characters. But we just kind of went with this one. I think the logo will change as the series goes along. But we put together a really good Pinterest collection of ideas of stuff that we liked, and we kind of compared each other's stuff, and we basically everything we liked overlapped. And so I felt very safe working with him, just giving him basic ideas of. I've laid all the other books I've done that are like this. I've laid out myself, and what I did was just gave him those bones to work off, and then he just filled it in because he knew what to do, and he showed me his basic ideas. A lot of it felt like old 1930s and 40s, actually like the Merry Melodies stuff.
Yeah, yes, 100%.
That's that vibe, and it feels very old school cinematic, which is exactly that world that if you went and saw an Adventureman movie in 1944, that's what the opening would have been like.
100%, man.
Yeah, it's fun. It just gives the that next level of entry into the book. I think getting you prepared for the book. It's like a great intro to any TV show or movie that we get nowadays. You actually will sit and watch that more than you'll watch the show.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's very important to have the whole package feel like the book.
Yeah, it feels the entire thing feels of a piece of the world. Sorry, cut you out there at the end.
Yeah.
No question.
Exactly.
So the hardcover of Adventureman Volume 1, available now, and contact your local store. If you don't see it on the racks, make sure they order it for you. And terrific stuff, guys, honestly, and I can't wait to talk about Volume 2 when it starts coming out. So we'll definitely reconvene for that. And as always, I appreciate you guys coming on. Have a great holiday.
Yeah, stay safe, stay sane, everybody. Stay inside.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, John. And take care, guys. Everybody.
Seriously, yeah. No, hey, man. Maddie and I have known each other, almost 15 years now. And truly, Terry, it's been great getting to know you this year. And I'm really glad that you want to come on and you want to come back. But I'm going to make you got to bring Rachel on sometime. Man. I really want to talk to both of you sometime. It would be terrific.
We'll do it on horseback sometime.
But just like with the like a selfie on the
GoPro. The GoPro horseback version of Wordman.
That would be amazing.
Oh, I love the show. I'm a Patreon sponsor of the show, so I love the show. It's a great. You have so many great guests and topics to go over. It's great for my afternoon runs to go listen to.
Great, well, it means a lot, seriously, man, and truly, both of you provide content. So to also help me out financially is incredibly kind. So thank you very much. And as always, great seeing you guys. Everybody watching, we're going to do a Word Balloon Live later on tonight with Ryan Dunleavy, who is in the midst of the comic book history of animation, and mentioning Looney Tunes earlier.
Very
and
the Looney. I think the Looney Tunes one is like next week, right? I think.
Yes. Issue 2 comes out next week. That's why I had Freddie on last week. And he's like, "Oh yeah, issue 2 comes out the week of the 23rd." I'm like, "Well, shit, let's get Ryan on."
It always feels insulting to say to a fiction writer that like the comic book history of comics, and now that like this is kind of my favorite. Like in a bunch of great stuff that Fred has done, this is kind of my favorite. And I'm always, but like, boy, if you haven't checked it out and you're watching it, it's great. It's really, really terrific.
The amazing behind the scenes stories of these animation companies and these creators and all the backstabbing and stuff. It's a fascinating real history.
And Joe Dante for years tried to get a Termite Terrace movie made.
I didn't know that
on the Warner Brothers animators, guys. So this it has long been a movie waiting to happen. So I'm glad that at least Fred and Ryan got there to make a meal out of it if no one else has.
And Ryan, just the ideas, and I can't wait to talk to him about the representations he has, like Walt Disney as Mickey Mouse. But very Walt Disney looking.
Yeah.
And some of the other designs for the real people and stuff, and how he kind of merges the animated characters with their creators. Very funny stuff.
Great.
So look forward to that. That's going to be tonight at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. Just a couple hours away. So looking for that. And until then, thanks everybody. Stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy.